like you're me. No, I'm not you necessarily. I'm Basement Kid. That's just a character I play. I broke into your house, a month ago. You're the one that tried to kill me? Yes. If you want anyone to then see you, you have to become me. And that's why I came here today. Do you understand? So what do you say? Basement Kid. Hello, and welcome back to my basement. Today, I will talk about my favorite films of 2021. First up, Cruella. Ugh, that bastard! Who does he think he is, tying me up like this? Oh, oh wow. That won't stop me from counting down my favorites of 2021. And, as always, spoilers ahead.
Born and raised in London, sweeping chimneys.
The first film on my list is kind of strange. Not because the movie itself is weird or anything, but because it's debatable whether or not it's even considered a film. The project I'm referring to is Bo Burnham's Inside. It is technically considered a comedy special, but it's not a traditional one. It was filmed by Bo entirely alone in his own house over the course of 2020. It barely even treats itself as a comedy special. Sure, there are songs and skits, but they aren't just there to make you laugh. All of the comedy is in service of the overall melancholy message of the film. And that message is one of depression, self-isolation, and loneliness, which is, I think, a message that everyone who went through the pandemic can kind of get behind a little bit. The movie isn't really a comedy special. It's an independently produced feature film that reflects Bo's fears and anxieties that he felt during the pandemic. Because all the songs and all the skits are just there to reflect and support this central theme. And he really knows how to make you laugh when he wants to. And he really knows how to make you sad when he wants to. This film really just combines all of Bo's talents. His talents in terms of filmmaking, as well as his talents in terms of joke writing and songwriting and making you laugh. It's an emotional roller coaster ride from start to finish that leaves you reflecting on your own fears and your own anxieties. You know, you've probably heard the songs from this film 1,000 times over because they're all over social media, because everybody loves the songs, which is good because these songs are amazing, but this movie is much, much more than a few good songs. This movie is an amazing existential, surreal dive into Bo's fears and anxieties and your own fears and anxieties, and really just what self-isolation can do to a person.
I think we're about to get murdered.
This next one is the new Wes Anderson film, The French Dispatch. I do think that this movie has the same level of visual wit as Wes's other films. The cinematography is very gorgeous, and the acting is amazing, as always. Like Wes Anderson's other films, this one has a very clear stylistic vision, but unlike his other films, this movie is not a continuous narrative story, but instead an anthology featuring 3 separate stories. The movie tells its story through a newspaper. Each story is supposed to be an article from a different column of the paper. Due to the anthology format, this allows experimentation with different aspect ratios, black and white footage, and even animation. All of these segments are interesting, and my favorite is probably the one about the painter. There is still a central story between the segments about Bill Murray's character, who runs the newspaper, and is retiring, so all the stories in this film are supposed to make up the newspaper's final issue. The ending of the film shows all the different authors in the newspaper column coming together to mourn the death of Arthur, who is Bill Murray's character. It's an amazing conclusion and concept, but in execution, it didn't work for me. And that's mostly because I don't really feel for any of these characters. All of these authors and stuff, I don't feel for them because you don't really get to spend time with them, right? You get to spend time with the stories that they wrote, which some of them feature the authors, right? But not as the main characters. The main characters of these stories are completely different people. And I think that the downfall of this film is mostly its format. Its anthology format is able to take Wes's abilities as a storyteller and show how he can tell many different types of stories, which is cool. But it really tanks down the film in terms of its conclusion, because Wes Anderson is really great at ramping up and taking all of these characters and making one big conclusion with them. He builds up the story over 3 acts, and by the conclusion, you really feel it. It's a really heartfelt conclusion, and he is able to do this by showing all these characters and making you feel for all these characters and having you spend time with these characters and get connected to them and their stories. But in this film, you don't get to spend time with the characters. Although there is some connective tissue, there's not enough for me to really care or know anything about these characters. They're just people for me. And that makes it some really more style over substance. I feel like if there was more connective tissue and the anthology format took less of a forward-fronting role in the film, and it was there, but it was mostly there to have you spend more time with these characters and spend time with Bill Murray's character and the other authors, I feel like that would be a better overall film, because then it would actually lead into the conclusion. Or either that or just change the conclusion entirely. That doesn't mean I don't like the movie. I love the movie. I think the rest of the film is really good. It's not a bad movie by any means. It's still a pretty good movie. And I would still recommend it. It still gets a place on this list, but not as high up as it could be.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary. 'Tis but a scratch.
David Lowery is a director that has a vast filmography, despite him only having 7 feature-length films under his belt. He made the indie art house drama, A Ghost Story, in 2017, which I loved. Only a year prior, he created Pete's Dragon, a live-action Disney remake made for extremely young children. In this movie, Mr. Lowery creates a reimagining of the old medieval legend of Sir Gawain. This isn't a new concept. There was even another film that came out last year that did a very similar thing, but with a Shakespeare play instead of an old medieval folktale. However, I do think that this movie is able to execute the concept very well. The plot is one of a man who goes on an adventure to prove himself as a true, honest, and brave knight. The movie definitely leans into its folktale nature by incorporating a multitude of fantastical elements that add to the vibe of the film. The Green Knight himself is a tree-like creature. The movie is very clear in its messaging. It shows how Gawain seeks to prove that he is a true brave and noble knight, but he often feels the need to rely on safeguards rather than fighting his own fights. I usually dislike fake-out endings, but here for me it worked pretty well. I think the fake-out ending was really able to get the message across about how if Sir Gawain didn't go through with the fight with the Green Knight and show his true honesty and bravery, he would be a bad king. And ultimately, his nation would fall and crumble. The literal parable of an eye for an eye. Sir Gawain cut off the Green Knight's head, so then the Green Knight has to cut off Sir Gawain's head. And he's also able to update this story with his amazing, almost surreal fantasy visuals, which adds for a very entertaining and fun experience. And yeah, if you haven't seen this one, I would recommend watching it.
I'm gonna check on the sausage rolls.
The Lost Daughter is a film directed by actress Maggie Gyllenhaal. In this directorial debut, Maggie covers ideas of parenthood and longing for the past. The main character of this film is Lita, who is played by Olivia Colman, who is an actress I really admire. And throughout the movie, Lita reminisces on her years as a parent and how she wishes that she could have been there for her kids more. Throughout the film, we are treated to Jessie Buckley playing the younger version of Lita as she figures out how to be a mother. This movie isn't just made up of flashbacks, because we also see modern-day Lita interacting with Nina. Lita is fixated on Nina because she is the same young mother that Lita used to be. This film is definitely a very personal and emotionally resonant story. However, there was some stuff in the film that didn't really work for me, like the ending conflict. It kind of just felt forced and came out of basically nowhere, and it didn't really pay off or even serve a huge purpose in the film. I know what the director was going for with this choice, but I really just didn't understand what it really added in the grand scheme of things. I do think everyone's acting was really good, especially Olivia Colman, who I love as an actor, and Jessie Buckley is also an amazing actor too, who was the lead in I'm Thinking of Ending Things last year, which was one of my favorite films, or was my favorite film of 2020. And even though this film isn't perfect, I do think it shows a lot of promise for Maggie Gyllenhaal's future as a director, and shows that she isn't just an actor, and she's capable of not only starring in really good films, but also making really good ones. So overall, it's a really personal film, and you can tell that Maggie Gyllenhaal put a lot of passion into this project. This movie is about relationships and trying to navigate love when you already have a family. I'm talking about a film known as The Killing of Two Lovers. It's really able to capture a very disorienting and almost nightmarish tone. It does this through the acting, camera work, and even the soundtrack. The movie is really able to capture a couple trying and ultimately failing to save their marriage, and it has a very simple premise, but it's executed amazingly. I would recommend checking this one out. Well, that was the first 5 entries on my list. I would show you number 5 with my hands, but I can't, because they're all tied up thanks to that bastard! I wonder what he's up to right now. The next film on my list is, of course, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. I love this film. I'm so glad Sony made another Venom film. It's filled to the brim with wacky adventures of our favorite goopy monster. This time we get to watch Woody Harrelson join the mix, and his absolutely amazing acting really adds to the project. You can definitely see that he had a passion for the role, and didn't just come on because they paid him a lot of money.
The goal of a porno movie, I think, should be to give you a boner.
Paul Thomas Anderson is a director I really admire. Magnolia is actually one of my favorite movies ever made, so when I heard that he was making a new film that was kind of a return to form, back to the kind of films that he used to make in the 90s, I was ecstatic. Licorice Pizza is definitely able to deliver on that promise. This film follows Alana and Gary, who are 2 young people living in California in the 1970s. The setting already is very reminiscent of something like Boogie Nights or Magnolia. It's really cool to see PTA return to his roots while still showing his growth as a filmmaker from those earlier works. Throughout the film, the 2 main characters constantly show that they only have their own self-interests in mind, but despite this, they can't help constantly being with each other, even if neither of them really have the ability to care for one another. It's a classic narcissistic love story. The main problem I have with the story is its disjointed nature. We go from them being actors to waterbed salesmen, to trying to get gas during a gas embargo, to working for the mayor, to opening a pinball arcade. It's, very, all over the place. Paul Thomas Anderson has shown that he can really capture sprawling stories in a really great way. Just look at Magnolia. That's a huge sprawling story. But that's one of my favorite movies of all time, mostly because of how well it juggles all of its different subplots and characters and ties them all together and weaves this really epic story that doesn't really feel meandering at all. It feels like it knows exactly what it wants to do. But this movie doesn't really do that, because this story is a small-scale story. It's a love story between 2 characters, which is not a bad thing. And I think that he can capture small-scale stories and large-scale stories, but in this one, he kind of tries to do both a little bit. There are just so many different characters and subplots in this film. Gary gets arrested at one point. Okay, he just gets arrested and then he leaves the police station, that's it. What was the purpose of that? Can someone tell me? No, you can't, because there was no purpose. It was just oh, he got arrested, oh no! Well, he's not arrested no more. And then there was Bradley Cooper's character. And that's a good character, but I wish we saw more of it. It's just whoa, I'm crazy Bradley Cooper, okay, I'm gone now. He just disappears. There's no purpose to any of it, really. I kind of wish that the film told one long, continuous story, but instead, it doesn't do this. It's several different disconnected stories, all revolving around the same 2 characters, but they just don't really come together in the end. But I did love the ending. Some people don't like the ending. Some people think it felt rushed, or didn't really fit in there. Because, there is a big age gap between the 2 characters and the relationship. About 10 years, right? Some people think that the ending of them ending up together glorifies the age gap and shows, hey, this is okay. I think that the ending simply reinforces the message of these two characters being terrible for each other. We see throughout the whole movie, things go wrong when they're together, and they just don't fit together, and they don't work together, right? But they still come running toward each other towards the end of the film. Not just towards the end, but throughout the whole movie. They're running towards each other. And they keep running towards something that's not good for them. Running towards a relationship that's ultimately toxic. But they still do it because they really don't care. You know, why would they care?
You are the father.
This is a film some may technically consider a 2020 movie, but I'm counting it as a 2021 film due to the fact that it did not get a wide release until February of 2021. And for this list, I'm going by the film's wide releases, not the world premieres. And the movie I'm referring to is The Father, which is a movie told from the perspective of a dementia-ridden old man as he tries to come to terms with his changing circumstances. The old man is played by the always wonderful Anthony Hopkins, and Mr. Hopkins actually won an Academy Award for Best Leading Actor in a Feature Film at the 2021 Academy Awards, and I think it was definitely deserved. And he's not the only great performance in this film. I think all the performances are great, especially Olivia Colman's actually plays Anthony Hopkins' daughter. Well, his character's daughter. And all the actors really add to the disorienting and surrealist feel of the film. Cinematography definitely helps you to feel like out of your element and disoriented, like you don't know what's going on, and it definitely blurs the lines between like, oh, what time is this? Is this in the past or is this now? Or is this even happening? What's real? What isn't? It really puts you in the shoes of a dementia-ridden old man. And it really knows how to mess with you and get inside your head. And I really applaud the director of this film for being able to capture this surrealist, disorienting vibe that the film is trying to put off. I would strongly recommend this film for its absolutely stunning visuals and its very distinct style.
Cite Shakespearean quotations.
Nightmare Alley is the new feature from Guillermo del Toro. This movie is first and foremost a character study about a trick magician who uses his tricks to take advantage of vulnerable people. Bradley Cooper plays the main character in the movie and is supported by many wonderful actors such as Cate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe, and Rooney Mara. The movie plays out about how you would expect, but it's really satisfying to see this absolutely narcissistic, terrible person really get his just desserts. You see him slowly experience his downfall as he slowly goes from being on top of the world to being a homeless man. You know, the movie's ending was really predictable, but not in a bad way, in a good way. In a way where like, this feels satisfying. This feels like the best conclusion for the story. It feels like where it needs to go in this very dark character study. And dark is an understatement because Guillermo del Toro is really able to capture the gritty visual style of this movie in a way that I don't think any other director really could as well as he does. The art design was magnificent, and it really also added to the amazing tone of the film. And yeah, I really love this one.
And this is Daddy Pig.
Nicolas Cage is an actor who has been in so many different films that even the most hardcore of his fans probably haven't seen all of them. I think he has the ability to be a great actor, such as in a film like Adaptation, but most of his films really don't know how to use him properly. And they kind of just cast him because, oh, he's Nicolas Cage. Everyone loves Nicolas Cage. Pig is an example of a film that really knows how to use him well, and it uses him to the film's advantage. The movie itself is a very small-scale indie drama about a man looking for his pig. You might look at the plot synopsis for the film and be like, oh, this is gonna be like John Wick, and he's gonna be like, oh, I'm an action hero, and I'm gonna shoot and kill people for my pig. No, it's closer to something like Paris, Texas. You see this man disconnected from his old life, and he has to go on a journey to reconnect with someone that he's lost. Throughout this journey, he reconnects with what he left behind and the person he used to be. And yeah, it's really emotionally resonant story that works really well for me. It's very small scale, it's very indie, it's not like what you might be expecting, but it's really good.
Sorry I had a fight in the middle of your Black Panther party.
Judas and the Black Messiah is a film about the Black Panther Party, which was a civil rights movement in the 1960s. The movie is more specifically about William O'Neill, who is an FBI plant and he's planted there to infiltrate the organization and gather information on Fred Hampton, who is the chairman of the Illinois branch of the Black Panther Party. This is a very interesting character study about a man who you know has done bad things, but you feel bad for him because he's not doing this because he wants to. He's doing this because he has to, because he's afraid for his life. And the acting from both Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield is immaculate and really gets the message across. Even though they're both two people on the completely opposite sides of the moral spectrum, you still find a way to feel bad for both of them because they're both being oppressed and put down by the government that's supposed to protect them, and it's not. Procession is a documentary that circles around a group of men in the Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas area who've all been sexually abused by the Catholic clergy. These men create short films that reflect on the sexual abuse that they have faced in their life. The movie is very powerful and hits really hard at times. The way you see all these people bond over one shared horrendous experience, and the sheer camaraderie between the group is absolutely incredible. This movie really hit me hard emotionally. All this stuff happened so close to where I live. It really allows it to take place in a reality for me, where other films would feel disconnected for me. And, you know, I know this stuff happened, but, like, I'm not really able to understand the full picture of it until it happens so close to where you live. And that makes the film just all the more horrifying, and really allows the movie to get the message across of the corruption and the Catholic Church. Is, of course, the amazing film Free Guy. I can't believe that they packed in so many different video game and pop culture references. It was very funny and entertaining, and did not feel money hungry at all. I definitely agree with the popular consensus that Ryan Reynolds is a good actor.
Brad Pitt, finally.
Minari is a movie about a family living in a small town in Arkansas. They are trying to cultivate a profitable farm while also raising a family in a country that treats them less favorably than others. It's a slice of life indie drama that is able to capture all the feelings of growing up and making the best of a troublesome situation. This film also points out the divide between David, who's born in the Americas, and his grandmother, who spent her whole life in Korea. And I think it does a really great job at showing this sort of prejudice and hostility. This relationship starts out as sort of distant and hostile. As the film goes on and reaches its conclusion, they slowly start to develop a friendship with each other. And they realize that they aren't so different after all. And they are able to put aside their differences and have an appreciation for each other's culture. The film's able to be heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time, and it doesn't spare you from witnessing the tragedies and the hardships that are endured by this family, but in the end, you're still left with a feeling of optimism and hopefulness for the future. It's a very emotional and personal film that firmly lands its spot on my list. Very good movie. Flee is a documentary about a man who fled from Afghanistan as a young boy in the 1980s. It recounts his journey as he illegally immigrated from Afghanistan to Russia to Denmark, as well as his experiences having to keep his true story secret for his entire life out of fear of harsh punishment from the authorities. Its animation is truly stunning, and the story can be truly heartbreaking at times, but the animated aspect is to hide the true identity of its protagonist due to the fact that he is discussing something that may ruin his life if it was ever found out. It does use its style to its advantage and is able to illustrate sequences that would not have been possible in live action. Overall, Flee is an extremely heartbreaking and tear-jerking story that really hits emotionally hard at times. Sean Baker is one of my favorite directors of the 21st century simply because of how he's able to capture the seedy underbelly of American culture and capture it so accurately and vividly in a way that no other director I've seen has done before. And this film is really no different. This film revolves around Mikey Saber, who is played by actor Simon Rex. Mikey is a porn star who decides to return to a small Texas town to to get back on his feet. The movie itself is really just a character study of Mikey as he slowly begins to show his true colors by only caring about himself and taking advantage of the people around him. He's really just a huge dirtbag, and he knows this, but he still uses his little power that he has over other people to his advantage. He takes someone who treats him as a brother, makes him drive him around everywhere, and ultimately gets him in huge trouble with the law and has him take the fall for it. He tricks and manipulates his estranged wife and grooms and sexually manipulates a 17-year-old girl and tries to get her to come back to Los Angeles to become a porn star with him, even though she's hesitant about the prospect. Sean Baker is really able to capture the tone of the film perfectly, mostly through the backdrop of the movie. The Florida Project, which was his last film, was able to capture its starkly whimsical tone through the backdrop of Orlando, around Walt Disney World. Red Rocket takes place during the 2016 election in a small industrial town, allowing the audience to draw parallels between Mikey's narcissistic character and the world of politics in general. The film shows him getting forcibly kicked out of Texas City, and as he walks towards the House of Strawberry, it shows a mirage of Strawberry as he wanders this landscape that was once super kind to him and once gave him money and gave him people to manipulate. Now it's barren, and he has nothing. He is nothing. He's in the same space that he once was, and all that is left is his idea of what Strawberry was and his idealistic future for himself. His future successes that he wishes he would have, and what he thought he would get out of taking advantage of Strawberry, are now just a figment of his imagination. Now just a mirage far off in the distance, something he'll never be able to catch, something he'll never be able to use, and something that will always be out of reach. His successes will always be out of reach, and he'll never be able to reach them because he is not a good person, and he'll never be a good person because he's Mikey Saber.
The Hand of God.
The Hand of God is a film made by Pablo Sorrento, partially inspired by his own life. Throughout the film, we witness Fabito grow up in Naples. It's very much a coming-of-age story as Fabito learns how to be an adult and discovers who he wants to become in this world. Well, as the film progressed, I was really able to connect with Fabito and his story, because about halfway through the film, his parents died, and this big change in his life drastically affects him so much that he finally starts to consider what his life is going to be and who he's going to become. Because before this point, he was just stuck under the roof of his parents. He was still a child, and now you see him be forced into adulthood. And Fabito's feelings of loneliness and his urge to create something big and be known for something in the world really connects with me. And it really takes this story from just being a simple coming-of-age indie drama that I would really enjoy to something more personal and really emotionally resonant for me as a watcher, because it really reflects my feelings of wanting to be a filmmaker. Beep, 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 yeah! Drive My Car is a Japanese film about Yusuke and his chauffeur named Masaki. The film itself is about death, coming to terms with the death of people around you. Both Yusuke and Masaki have lost someone very important to them, and throughout the film, the pair dive into their relationship with both themselves as well as the ones they have lost. Through each other, they are able to come to terms with their relationships with their lost loved ones. Some may say that 3 hours is too long for this movie, but for me, the film breezes by. I was able to connect with the story and all the characters within it. And even though this is a super long story with many different characters and subplots and diving into relationships between characters and relationships between loved ones and between your lost loved ones and a whole bunch of different things, it really is a meaningful film, and it's a movie with a lot of emotional weight. The film starts out with 40 minutes of Yusuke's story. This isn't an unnecessary addition to the film, and it really adds to the emotional weight and allows you to look at what he used to have and how he used to feel towards his wife, and now how he feels once he's lost her. It's an absolutely amazing, fantastic movie that really dives into love and loss and relationships with friends, family, loved ones, your spouse. The directing in the movie is amazing as well. I was really able to feel something between these characters And yeah, it's just an amazing movie, and I would strongly recommend it to anyone. Okay, before I get to my number one... Stupid... Hold on. I think I know how to get out of here. My favorite film, which is the biggest, most epic crossover of the whole year, and that is Space Jam: A New Legacy. It brings in all of the most popular characters and puts them all together for a giant fan service film that is amazing and does not feel at all like they just wanted money. I love this film, and it's a great addition to the Space Jam saga. I can't wait to see what they make next. How'd you get out? Come on, come down there and face me like a man. I will, because I have some dignity, unlike you. Who cares about dignity? When you want money, dignity isn't a question. Yeah, I can see that. Oh, don't pretend you have any dignity either. I do too have dignity. Oh, really? Yeah, at least I actually mean what I say. I actually care about movies. I care about my own opinions. I have opinions. Why would you need to mean anything? That's not gonna get you anywhere. Why can't I just talk about what I love talking about? You want someone to see you? You want the world to see how great your videos are? That's a fruitless effort. Yeah. I guess it is. You know, what am I even doing here? I'm just gonna go. Well, I guess I'm back here again. So let's get to my number one pick.
Park your car in the garage! And then screw it!
Julia Ducournau is a French director who makes body horror film, and I liked her last film, Raw. However, this film isn't just a body horror film, it's much deeper than that. The movie opens on our main character, Alexia, already killing people. She's already a serial killer. She's killed 30 people before the movie even started, and as soon as it starts, she kills another person. And then she goes on to cause a huge killing spree just in the first half hour of the film. But this movie isn't about that. It's not about a character slowly going insane. She's already this way, and we don't know why or how. But that's not important, because that's not what it's about. It's about love. Alexia, the serial killer, pretends to be, this guy Vincent's missing son to hide from the police. What originally starts out as a terrible person taking advantage of a vulnerable man evolves into a sprouting relationship between these two characters. Even though Vincent knows this isn't his son, and everyone tries to say, hey, this isn't your son, he does not care. He just wants someone to fill the void that's been missing in his life ever since his son went missing. And even though Alexia is a terrible, downright despicable human being, somehow she's able to warm up to Vincent because he's the father figure that she was missing. Alexia's father is barely a father figure. But Vincent actually cares for Alexia. By the end of the film, you're truly able to understand this strange and disturbing but ultimate heartfelt relationship. It's not to say that the movie isn't disturbing. It's a wonderfully terrifying, disturbing affair. You know, there are just plenty of disturbing visuals sprinkled throughout. This is a Julia Ducournau film after all, and she makes body horror. Actually more going on to Alexia's character rather than just killing people. And the killing scenes are gore intense and utterly horrifying and really deliver on the horror aspect. But the body horror comes in when Alexia begins to give birth to something that's part human, part metal. As hinted to by the title, Titane, which means titanium in English. Alexia had a metal plate put in her head when she was young, and she has this attraction to metal objects, more specifically automobiles. These two subplots may seem entirely unconnected, because they are in theory, but the way that Julia is able to take these two different, completely unrelated things and wrap them together in an ultimately disturbing, bombastic affair is incredible. And this is, and no doubt, helped by the amazing directing from Julia, of course, but also Agatha Roussell's amazing performance. I definitely recommend this film to anyone who doesn't get very queasy easily, because it can be pretty disturbing and gross at points, but if you get past all that, it's a very emotionally investing film, which is strange for a body horror movie, but it's true. And that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.